Hello, tiny friends. Welcome back. Today I wanted to share with you the last project of this year. I did not film any of the making of this project. The reason why I didn't film it is because it's a special gift for my friend Charlotte. Charlotte just had a birthday, Christmas just passed, and she gifted me most of the items in this scene, including the box. So I'm just going to go around, show you everything, and tell you how I did it. And I really wanted to make another display box out of the photo boxes that she gave me, kind of like I did with the witch's cottage. If you haven't seen that project yet and would like to, I'll put a shortcut link in the description box below and you can just click on that. When I come back, I'll be finishing up the camper, going back to the polymer clay hands that I've been kind of sort of procrastinating on. And then we'll move back into the Josephine house and do some fun projects in there. Maybe a couple episodes in the pet cemetery as well. But I also have a project that is definitely going to be happening in 2026 because I have been collecting for this project since the beginning of my channel, and there's a new part coming out in theaters. So that will be super fun to finally bring that idea to life. Okay, so if you want to see how I created the window from the lid, then definitely check out the Witch's Cottage because I show how I did that. So for this window, I used a very thin wood trimming and paper lace. The paper lace is actually cupcake wrappers. I feel tongue-tied when I say that, but I'll tell you, those cupcake wrappers, those lacy cupcake wrappers are great to use for several projects. I found an extra pack of fairy lights and I really wanted to add lights to this one. So I just glued the wire up there with hot glue. It is a bit of an eyesore, but you really can't see it from the front view unless you bend down and look up. The battery pack is glued to the very back, and I used hot glue for that. I used a lot of hot glue for this project. So here is the switch to turn it on and off. You can easily replace the batteries. And I had a stash of heart-shaped eyelet grommets. So I drilled a hole, fed the wire through, and glued on one of those to give it a cutesy, cleaner look. I do have to admit that it was quite a challenge to create something that wasn't old, and it felt a little out of my comfort zone. Well, I just couldn't help myself, so I aged the bird cage. Kind of like a signature. I'm pretty sure that I've had that bird cage since the 90s when I first started collecting miniatures, and I am super happy that I am finally able to put it in a project. We'll take a closer look at it in a bit. I really love using these photo boxes as display boxes because you can put whatever scene you would like. You can turn it vertically, horizontally. I'm loving using these, so I definitely plan on making more of them. Charlotte gifted me all of the dolls you see in the garden, including the teddy bear. The main dolls are bisque dolls. They're a lot older, and I did customize both of them for the project. I'm going to start with the backdrop. I found the image in the back doing a Google search. It did take the longest time for this project. I wanted to find an image that was going to be a perfect fit with the idea of the project of two little girls playing dress up with their dollies in the garden. I then transferred it to my Photoshop, sized it according to the box. I enhanced the color, and then I printed it out. I sealed it with a matte varnish by Duraclear. Once that dried, I sealed it with a matte Mod Podge. I used double-sided carpet tape to stick it to the back of the box, and that was pretty much it. I painted the inside of the box a sky blue since they are outside in the garden. And then on the side panels, they were just big empty spaces of blue. And I felt that they definitely needed something. So I went in and painted clouds on the sides. And it just gives the idea that it's a lovely warm spring day. Did I mention that this hat was the spark of this whole idea? So I've had this hat probably since the beginning of collecting miniatures from the 90s, and it was old and falling apart. So I did have to glue it together. It was missing half of the feathers, and I didn't have any fluffy feathers other than those peach ones. So I added the peach ones. I added an embellishment. I placed it on the little girl's head and saw her playing dress up. I really wanted to put a bird inside the bird cage. The bird I chose was a parrot gifted to me by Miss Charlotte, and the bird cage was one whole piece, so I had to cut open a door, and I had to take the swing out in order to get the bird on there. With the pieces that I cut out of the door, I just sandwiched those 4 little bars in between skinny strips of cardstock, and I used tacky glue for that, and then I glued it back in there. I even borrowed a little bit of birdseed from kiwi. I crushed it up and put it in the dish with some tacky glue. And if you're wondering why there's a bird in a bird cage hanging from a tree outside, well, that's just simply because the little girls wanted to include their pet parrot in their tea time party with their dollies. They need to keep their pet bird safe from flying away and any other predators that might harm it. Little girls are silly and they're thoughtful that way. They do things like that, especially sisters. But I am pretty sure that a bird cage hanging from a tree is a trendy decor piece these days. Let's take a look at this cute little critter who has made himself a cozy little home inside the hole in the tree. He's made from a pussy willow pod. He was also gifted to me by Miss Charlotte, and he already had a face on him, so I just could not resist giving him his own little home. I think he may be a hedgehog. Whatever the case, he is so stinking cute, and he loves his home in the garden. When I made the trees, I started with aluminum foil, scrunched it up loosely, branched out the roots, branched out the top, and then I glued it into place with hot glue. I covered it with air dry clay, and I was able to sculpt in all the details. There are some cracks in the clay, but I think it's okay because they're not too noticeable. If that happens to your clay and you're not okay with it, you can easily make some clay slip by just adding water to it to make a more thinner consistency and then just spread it over to fill in the cracks. When I began to paint the trees, the clay wasn't fully dried. I started this project before Christmas, but I had very minimum time to finish this, so I had to get it done ASAP. I didn't notice the cracks till after I painted it. And I could go back in and add the slip and then repaint, but it's going to be more difficult to try and match the coloring of the trees. If you look on the image, you'll notice in the top corners of the image, you'll see part of the top of a tree sticking out. And I wanted to blend the trees into that image and kind of connect them together. So once the paint dried, I added the greenery, and I think it looks really neat. I did add dried greenery all around the garden, around the picket fence. There's flowers, there's little shrubs. And I didn't realize that you wouldn't really see all that once I put everybody into place. But I added climbing vines and beautiful flowers everywhere, a little bit of moss. I guess you just get little hints of it now that all the dollies are out playing in the garden. I really do love how these trees came out. I had no idea what they were going to end up looking like, so I'm really happy with them. I'm glad that greenery worked out up on the top. For the ground, I started with used coffee grounds from my morning coffee, and I added paint and Mod Podge. I mixed it all together. I laid it down, let it dry. And then I began to add static grass. When I chose the grass, I just grabbed a bag of grass out of the bin. I have a bin of everything I'm using for the pet cemetery. So I just grabbed a bag. And I didn't realize that I grabbed the longest grass I had, which was 8 millimeters. And I went with it. I should have used a shorter grass, but it's okay. It's kind of hairy grass. And then I just added little patches of forget-me-nots. And those are the tiny speckled blue patches that you see. The teddy bear is really old. I added a blue bow tie and I just freshened up his face. But then some of the paint rubbed off the nose. And I decided, you know what, he's old. I'm going to leave it like that. I put him on the smallest chair that I picked for the project. Both were gifted to me by Miss Charlotte. The bench is a ceramic bench and it has a carved floral design on it that says welcome. That was gifted to me by Miss Charlotte as well. And when she first showed me that bench, she asked me what my first thought was. And I said, it looks like one of those benches that you see in a cemetery. I don't know why I thought that. The Easter basket is wooden. It has a wooden bunny and wooden carrots. And little girls are like that. They grab their baskets, random things, and they bring them out to play with. The basket was also gifted to me. The little girl was actually a baby, and it didn't have any hair or clothes. I added her hair. I added a little barrette, a little bow. I put her in a little sweater dress that was made and gifted to me by Miniature Things by Lisa. I painted on her socks, her Mary Janes, and added some lace trimming to the top of her socks. And she grew from a baby to a toddler. The older sister is playing dress up. She already had a celery green dress on, and her features were already painted. I did a lot. The first thing I did was replace her hair because her hair was bad. So her blonde hair, it kind of just hangs down in a loose braid behind her back with a little bow tie. I did make the stand for her as well, which I used. I only had like one doll stand for miniature dolls, and I had to take it apart and rebuild it to custom fit her. For her clothes, I created a really simple robe and then put the robe on, and then I added a piece of tulle around it, added lace trimming to the tulle, and matched it with a waist tie. Because, you know, when little girls play dress up, they just put random things on and it doesn't matter to them and they're happy with it. And in her mind, she looks like a fancy princess. Okay? I'm not very good at making doll clothes. This is something that is still new to me. And it wasn't very easy just to make that robe. After I glued the hat back together, I added a little bit of peach fluffy feathers because that was all I had, and an embellishment button. It doesn't look like a button, it looks more like a shank, but it's a little embellishment. I've had that hat since the 90s, since I began collecting miniatures, and I didn't know what to do with it. I've had it in a little tiny box, a little jewelry box, forever. So I am super glad I was able to actually use it in a project. For her shoes, I added Barbie heels. I thought they were a perfect fit. They look great. They look like she's really wearing mom's shoes. I painted the pink bows and then I glossed them so they were super shiny. And then she couldn't stand on her own, so that's why she needed the doll stand. For the boa, I am going to do a video on the boa because it was a super easy DIY that I had to concoct. I didn't have any fluffy feathers, but I did have these little pom-pom balls from the Dollar Tree, and I cut them in half, and I kind of just like spread them out to make the boa. I glued them on a piece of aluminum foil thinking I would be able to peel it off, but it actually worked out better. I could not peel that off of the foil. So I left it on the foil, cut around it, folded the foil, and then added more fluff. The foil allowed me to shape it and bend it the way I wanted to, and it holds its shape. So that was kind of a fun discovery, I would say. Tea time has been set up by the older sister on a tree stump. I placed a little lace doily down that actually came from like a strand of little different sized doilies. It was like 3 yards that I purchased from Temu, and then you can cut them apart. The cookies and the teacups are actually from the camper project, and I knew I wouldn't be using them, so I added them to this project, and they worked out perfectly for this project. The little metal pitcher is a gift from Charlotte, and I'm just loving that I was able to use some of the treasures that she has gifted to me to create a lovely gift for her. She also gifted me the last 2 dolls and the chairs. The chairs are metal. This doll is very old, and her eyes were rubbed off, so she had no eyes. So I repainted her eyes, and now she just looks a little creeped out. But I love how the paint is chipped on the metal chairs, and it really looks like they've been using them outdoors. And now we have 2 sisters playing dress up with their dollies in a lovely garden in a photo display box. This project was a little different for me, but I hope you all have enjoyed it. And if you have, please click that like button and give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. I'd like to end 2025 with a big thank you for watching and a huge welcome to all of my new subscribers. Thank you all so much for all of your support. I couldn't do this without you, and I appreciate you all so much for helping my channel to grow. I put a link in the description box below if you would like to see how to create a photo box display box of your own. I hope you all have a lovely New Year's. Stay safe and warm, and I will see you next year on the mini side. Happy New Year, tiny friends.